Okay, this is my oh shit. What if episode 5? I think yeah. What if ECW never went out of business? First of all, I'd like to apologise for not doing this earlier. I've just been a bit busy with like job interviews and shit like that. Like kind of crap. Um, anyway, I'll get right into it. If ECW never went out of business in 2001, for that to happen, they would have needed to get another TV deal, like Paul Heyman said. Um, if that had happened, and this will, explain why they were heading in more of a, not pure wrestling as in how you use NWA, pure wrestling, but pure wrestling is what the type of thing you see in Ring of Honor. You don't see much hardcore wrestling and things like that. The reason why Paul Heyman was heading in that direction was because, the type of fans who appreciate, the hardcore wrestling, may have been the type of people who would appreciate it. You know, the more pure wrestling type of product. And that way he would also be able to get the TV networks off his, or case, because there wouldn't be as much blood and violence and stuff, but there'd be still a lot of good action that the fans could appreciate. If and then WCW would have still gone out of business, I'll assume. What would have happened was you still would have had TNA start, but you wouldn't have had, I think, Jerry Lynn and a couple of other guys, and you also wouldn't have seen WWE do the. Oh, they would have done the invasion thing, but they just would have done it with WCW instead of WCW and ECW, and that would have been, probably would have been worse, or I don't know, maybe better. It depends on who they hired. They may have been able to hire some more high-profile WCW guys, because they wouldn't have been, hiring Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, and I think like 10 of the ECW's bigger names. But you wouldn't have had. You wouldn't have had Ring of Honor start because that was a replacement for RF Videos, who distributed ECW's DVD videos and DVDs. You wouldn't have had RF Videos fund Ring of Honor because they already had their high selling thing, and Ring of Honor was just a replacement for ECW because ECW was their highest seller. Sorry, I'm a bit uncomfortable. You also wouldn't have seen IWA Mid-South become as popular as it did. Same thing with CZW. XPW never would have started. As a whole, it probably wouldn't. ECW staying alive wouldn't have been good for today's indie scene, because when ECW, went out of business, you had a lot of independent promotions, get more popular and start up and things like that, because you had a lot of ECW guys to work with, so people would, go that thing. So you would have really hurt the independent wrestling scene. I mean, you would have still had WCW going out of business, but a lot of the guys who were in WCW would have gone to like WWF or TNA, and there were other promotions which tried to start off, other major promotions, but WWF had such a, or WWE had such a foothold on the business that they didn't let any. Like, you had World Wrestling All Stars, which had Jeff Jarrett, Sting, Scott Steiner, Nathan Jones, Buff Bagwell, basically what TNA was in the early days. And they were a promotion started by an Australian guy, and he wanted to make it a global promotion, so he ran a couple of pay-per-views, but eventually what happened was the WWE or F started just buying out their bigger names, and they couldn't do anything. And then you had XWF, which had Kurt Hennig, Buff Bagwell again, because he needed a job, Hulk Hogan, Conan, a lot of big names as well, from when WCW went out of business, and Vince went and hired Hogan and Hennig, and really put the brakes on that as well, because they were trying to get a TV deal, and if they had kept Hogan and Hennig, they would have gotten one, but they didn't, because Hogan and Hennig left for more money. So you would have a severely deteriorated major promotion scene, because you would only have ECW and WWF, and ECW wasn't even close to. I mean, they were. I'll say they weren't close to what the type of business WWF was doing. They weren't doing this type of numbers. They weren't, they were competition. But and maybe when WCW went out of business, and remember, this is assuming WCW went out of business and ECW didn't. ECW would have gotten a higher profile, so they would have been seen as the number 2 promotion. They weren't really in a position to be the number 2 promotion next to the WWF. And you would have seen Vince would have started cherry picking a lot of ECW's guys, and with TNA, you'd still have but what would happen with wrestling style is, because you had TNA's X division, you had the ECW heading in a more high flying style with guys like Rob Van Dam, Jerry Lynn, guys like that. Steve Corino, well, he wasn't really much of a high flyer, but he was a good wrestler. You were getting a lot of really good wrestlers, and Just Incredible, Tajiri, Little Guido, who was a good wrestler. You would have seen more of a high flying style come into, because you would have had the number 2 and number 3 promotion, which would be ECW and TNA respectively. You would have seen them do a lot more high flying style and more good solid wrestling, and WWF to compete with that. If that is, TNA wouldn't be as big as they are now, but ECW would probably be in a good position of strength, because they were getting bigger and bigger even when they were going out of business. But you would have seen and maybe with ECW, TNA would have gotten used. Well, TNA would have gotten bigger because ECW fans would have also watched TNA as well. So maybe you would have seen TNA become popular, but not as popular as now. But you would have seen these two promotions, because right now WWE only has one promotion which they should be worried about, and that's the one with the TV deal. And if other promotions get a TV deal, they should worry about them too, because not so much worried about them, but just worry that they might get big and eventually one day might get a TV deal in the same slot as them or start making a lot of money. But anyway, I was saying, I would have seen a high flying style come into. You would have seen more of a high flying and good pure wrestling style come into things, and hardcore wrestling would have eventually been phased out, like WWE phased it out. ECW was phasing it out, but it was a bigger part of them, so they still would have had it always there. And the only way WWE would be able to compete with that type of wrestling, if fans turn to that, and I think fans would turn to that, because a lot of fans turn to TNA and turn to promotions like Ring of Honor and PWG because of that style. If that had happened, if fans started turning to that, WWE would have had to pick up their game and start hiring a lot more cruiserweights and really let them work the cruiserweight style like they did in WCW, because right now they don't really do that much. It's just a heavyweight style with smaller guys, and they do a couple cruiserweight spots in a match. So yeah, what you would have seen is the indie scene wouldn't be as big as it is now if ECW didn't go out of business. The major promotion scene, it would probably be a little bit bigger than it is now, because you would have had an extra promotion, which would be ECW, and you would probably see a more high flying style or indie scene style, or what you see in Ring of Honor and TNA in the X division in WWE. So for the major promotions, it would have been better for ECW to stay alive, but for the independent scene, it probably would have really hurt them if ECW didn't go out of business, because once again, with ECW going out of business, it really helped because it gave a lot of wrestlers to the independent scene, and you had a lot of ECW fans who liked independent wrestling, or who liked ECW, would have found all these other promotions like CZW, IWA Mid-South, and Ring of Honor wouldn't have started, as I said. But yeah, a lot of those fans wouldn't have turned to the alternative independent promotions. Maybe they would have, but it wouldn't mean as big a deal. They would have had ECW there, so they wouldn't have need to return to it. So yeah, independent scene would have been smaller, wrestling style would have been better, and the major promotion scene would have been a bit better than it is now. Anyway, I'm done. I'll probably do another video in a couple minutes. I'll yeah, do something. Alright, bye.